The LA Kings look for a mile-high rebound. We'll talk about that and more on this edition of Locked On LA Kings.
You are Locked On Kings, your daily podcast on the Los Angeles Kings. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, Kings fans, welcome to Locked On LA Kings, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks for making Locked On LA Kings your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts, and we are on YouTube. I'm Eddie Garcia, your host of Locked On LA Kings. I've worked in sports media for the last 30 years. I'm also co-host of the Puck Podcast, a weekly NHL review show that's been putting out content for the last 18 years, and a passionate LA Kings fan for over 30 years. You can start this season off with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Well, the LA Kings are back in action tonight in Colorado to face the Avalanche in the first of two meetings this season between the two teams. Actually, three meetings between these two teams, two in Denver and one in Los Angeles. Kings check in with a record of 9-5-3. LA is in first place in the Pacific Division, third place in the Western Conference, and sixth place in the NHL with 21 points in 17 games. Kings are coming off a 3-1 road loss to the Flames in Calgary on Monday. Over the last 13 games, the Kings have not lost two in a row. They have a record of 5-4-2 on the road this season. Colorado is 8-8 this season. Avalanche are fourth in the Central Division, eighth in the Western Conference, 14th in the NHL with 16 points in 16 games. They started the year with 4 straight losses, then won 5 in a row, then lost 3 in a row, and now have won 3 of their last 4 games. Their last game was a 3-2 overtime win at home against the Nashville Predators. On Monday, the Avalanche are 5-5 at home this season. Kings are led by Captain Anze Kopitar. He's got 18 points on the year, while Alex Laferriere is the leading goal scorer with 9. Laferriere also has 15 points. Adrian Kempe with 14 points. Avalanche are led by leading scorer Nathan MacKinnon, who has 30 points on the season, 7 goals, and 23 assists. He's one of the leading scorers in the NHL. Mikko Rantanen is their leading goal scorer with 9. Now, the Kings are expected to once again go with Darcy Kemper in net. He was solid in the team's last game, allowing 2 goals on 27 shots in the loss to Calgary, but had several high-quality saves as well. On the season, Kemper is 4-2-3 in 9 games. He's got a 2.65 goals against average and an ever-improving save percentage of .903. The Avalanche have had their issues in net this season, especially with their starter to go into the year, Alexander Georgiev. He has struggled this season. Had lost his starting job at one point. His record is 3-5 with an .863 save percentage and a goals against average of 3.76. Now, that forced the Avs to make a goalie change, at least temporarily. Justice Anunen took over in net for a while. He has a 5-2 record on the season, an .893 save percentage, and a goals against average of 264. However, Georgiev has apparently gotten the number one job back of late. He has been the starter in the last 3 games for the Avalanche, going 2-1. And I think Colorado understands that if they're going to go anywhere this year, they need to get Alexander Georgiev figured out at some point. And so they're looking to get him back in the number one job. Checking the matchup by the numbers, Kings check in 13th in the NHL in scoring average. They are averaging 3.24 goals per game. The Avalanche are 10th in the NHL in scoring at 3.44 goals per game. The Kings are 9th in the NHL in goals allowed per game at 2.88. Colorado 30th in the NHL, allowing 3.81 goals per game. The Kings' power play is 23rd in the league, 16.1%. Colorado is number 2 in the NHL, 33.3%. The Kings' penalty kill is 16th in the league, killing off 79.4% of the penalties, the power plays against. The Avalanche are 28th in the NHL, killing off 71.1% of the power plays against. So my big question going into this game, who will dictate the style of this game? The Kings would prefer it to be defensive and low scoring. The Avalanche would prefer it to be offensive and high scoring. The Avs can score and have a great power play, but their defense and goaltending has been below average, while the Kings have been good on the penalty kill and better defensively. So if we're seeing a 3-2, 2-1 type of game, I think that favors the Kings. If we're seeing a 5-4 game, something like that, that probably favors Colorado. As far as some keys to victory in this one for the LA Kings, first and foremost, stay out of the penalty box. The Avalanche power play, as it has been over the last few seasons, is among the best in the NHL. And of course, the best way to stop a power play is to not give that team any power play opportunities. While it's probably not realistic to ask the Kings to not commit any penalties, if they do take penalties, make them be good penalties, if there is such a thing, defensive zone penalties that are preventing a high quality scoring chance. No unnecessary stick fouls. I'm looking at you, Kevin Fiala. Don't flip the puck out of the playing service for a delay of game, and no too many men on the ice penalties, which we've seen the Kings commit in each of the last 2 games. Also, try to not take a penalty early in the first period where the Avalanche can, if not grab an early lead, gain momentum while making the Kings expend energy and affecting their line combinations. Let the Kings at least get into the flow of the game before maybe you take a penalty if you can avoid it at all costs. There is no question the big matchup in this game between the Kings and the Avs is the Colorado power play against the LA penalty kill. Also, contain the Avs stars. It starts with reigning league MVP Nathan MacKinnon. No one in the NHL has the combination of speed and power that MacKinnon does. He enters tonight's game leading the NHL in points, I mentioned, with 30. 23 of those are assists, so he's setting up his teammates as well, especially his line mate Mikko Rantanen, both 5-on-5 and on the power play. In the game earlier this season against Minnesota, the Kings did a solid job against another early season MVP candidate in the Wild's Kirill Kaprizov as they held him scoreless. It did help a little bit that he got hurt and had to miss about a quarter of the game, but they will need another effort like that, and it's not just an individual effort, but a team effort defensively, and that would certainly go a long way for the LA Kings to get a win tonight. Contain guys like Nathan MacKinnon, Mikko Rantanen, and star defenseman Cale Makar. Those 3 guys will be huge for the Avalanche. If they can contain those guys, that would go a long way. Cale Makar, former Norris Trophy winner. Now, the last time the Kings took on a former Norris Trophy winner, that was reigning Norris Trophy winner Quinn Hughes of Vancouver, and the Kings didn't do a great job against him. So Cale Makar is another guy that the Kings definitely have to contend with tonight against Colorado. And finally, make the Avalanche netminder uncomfortable. As I mentioned earlier, the Avs have had issues in net. Regardless of who starts for Colorado, the Kings need to get traffic in front of the goalie, take away those sight lines with screens, get shots from the point for deflections, and keep the pressure on. LA didn't do a good job of that, or a good enough job of that in their last game against Calgary, where they were pretty much shut down by Flames goaltender Dustin Wolf. Now, the Kings will need to do a good job of also avoiding unnecessary icings, especially when the 4th line or the 3rd defensive pair might be out there on the ice, because Colorado, being the home team, will get the final change, and you can be sure that head coach Jared Bednar gets an opportunity against the Kings' 4th line, or if the 3rd defensive pairing's out there, he's going to get his stars out there on the ice, and Cale Makar and Mikko Rantanen and also Nathan MacKinnon, to try and take advantage of any issues as far as matchups that go in tonight's game. So who are the Kings players in the spotlight tonight? We'll talk about that more next here on Locked On LA Kings, your team every day. Nothing delivers comfort and joy quite like the unrivaled quality and taste of Omaha Steaks. This year, skip the holiday hustle and bustle and save 50% off gourmet gifts site-wide at omahasteaks.com. Plus, get a $30 reward card when you shop early and score an extra $30 off with a promo code NHL. With 5 generations of experience, they consistently deliver the world's best steak experience, and the gifting experts at Omaha Steaks have made it easy to deliver the perfect gift with thoughtfully curated gift packages starting at $88.99. From legendary steaks to mouth-watering desserts and more, save 50% off site-wide at omahasteaks.com. Plus, our listeners get an extra $30 off with a promo code NHL and a $30 reward card when you shop early. That's 50% off at omahasteaks.com, OMAHA, and an extra $30 off with the promo code NHL. Minimum purchase may apply. And the World Series, Super Bowl, the Olympics, the world's top athletes get to play in these top level sporting events thanks to one thing, teamwork. And teamwork can also protect your financial legacy and your family's future. SelectQuote's licensed insurance agents are the perfect teammates when shopping for customized, affordable life insurance. SelectQuote is one of America's leading insurance brokers with nearly 40 years of experience, helping over 2 million customers find over $700 billion in coverage since 1985. Other life insurance brokers offer impersonal, one-size-fits-all policies that may cost you more and cover you less, while SelectQuote's licensed insurance agents work for you to tailor your life insurance policy for your individual needs as in little as 15 minutes. Get the right life insurance for you for less at selectquote.com/lockedonnhl. Go to selectquote.com/lockedonnhl today to get started. That's selectquote.com/lockedonnhl. Well, as far as the Kings' projected lineup against the Colorado Avalanche, it will likely look something like this. This is how the team practiced on Tuesday in Denver, according to Kings insider and friend of the show, Zach Dooley. Now, Jim Hiller has been looking to mix things up, especially when it comes to the top line. And late in the game against Calgary, we did see Trevor Moore on the top line with Andre Kopitar and Adrian Kempe. So far on the season, we have seen, playing with Kopitar and Kempe on the top line, Alex Laferriere, Quentin Byfield, Alex Turcotte, Akil Thomas, Kevin Fiala, and Trevor Lewis, and now apparently Trevor Moore. And I may have actually left out a brief stint by Andre Lee as well. I know we had an email from one of our fans of the show, our guy Robert in Hawthorne, wondering if this was hurting chemistry. Well, hopefully Turcotte can come back and help kind of settle things, but this is getting a little ridiculous as far as the players we're seeing. It's been a revolving door on the wing with Kopitar and Kempe on that top line, but looks like we'll see Trevor Moore in that tonight. The second line should be the same, Philip Deneau centering Kevin Fiala and Akil Thomas. The third line has been consistent pretty much throughout once Quentin Byfield moved back to center as he centers Alex Laferriere and Warren Foegele. And Christian Helenius should make his third straight start. We'll see if it's his last for a while, but we'll get more into that later. Andre Lee and Trevor Lewis should be the fourth line. As far as the defense, just one change. You still have Mikey Anderson and Vladislav Gavrikov on the top pairing, Joel Edmondson and Brant Clark on the second pairing, but it looks like Caleb Jones will draw into the lineup on the left side, opposite Jordan Spence on the third pairing. Darcy Kemper expected to get the start against his old team. We'll talk more about in a minute. David Riddick will be serving as the backup. That is the projected lines for the LA Kings coming up tonight. As for which LA Kings players are going to be in the spotlight tonight, you start, of course, with the goaltender, and that would be Darcy Kemper, but not just because of the important position that he plays. He is a former Colorado Avalanche, and the last time he played for the Avs, he was hoisting the Stanley Cup over his head as their number one goalie. He went 10-4 in the postseason, capped with the Stanley Cup championship back in the 2021-22 season with a victory over the Tampa Bay Lightning. This is Kemper's second trip back to Denver to face his old team since leaving to join the Washington Capitals. He lost 3-2 back in 2023 in Denver. He is 0-2 in his career against the Avalanche since winning the Cup with them. That was a loss in DC and a loss in Denver. However, his 2.23 goals against average in 10 career starts against Colorado is the lowest goals against average against the Avalanche of any active NHL goaltender. Kemper has played very well this season for the Kings, and you know that he would love to finally get that win over his old team tonight. Also, Kevin Fiala. Are we going to see good Kevin, or will we see bad Kevin? And I'm not trying to pick on Kevin. I actually really like Kevin Fiala. I think when he's on, he's a great talent and a real asset for a team. And I've gone on record as saying I am still very much in favor of the Kings trade to acquire Fiala for Brock Faber and the draft pick. Now, when Kevin Fiala, again, is right, the Kings are usually right. Now, in games this season, when Kevin Fiala has scored a goal, the Kings are 4-1-1. In games this season where Kevin Fiala has a point, the Kings are 6-1-2. In games this season where Kevin Fiala is scoreless, the Kings are 3-3-1. So for Kevin, no penalties, no risky passes in the Kings' own zone, and at least get a point and the Kings likely will have a favorable outcome against the Avalanche tonight. Mikey Anderson and Vladislav Gavrikov, the Kings' top pairing on defense. Will they get a chance to be matched up head-to-head against Nathan MacKinnon and Mikko Rantanen and their other top-line winger in Arturi Lehkonen? That's certainly the matchup that I think Jim Miller, the head coach of the Kings, would like to have as much as possible. But again, Colorado, the home team, they've got the last change. We'll see if their head coach, Jared Bednar, cares about that or not. Some coaches will run their top players out there whenever they want and don't really look at matchups. Others like to get matchups. And as I said, if the Kings, have an icing at the wrong time with the wrong personnel, of course, he's going to get his top guns out there to try and take advantage of a good matchup, a favorable matchup. But again, Anderson and Gavrikov likely looking to be out on the ice as much as possible against MacKinnon and Rantanen and Lehkonen. So hopefully they can help to contain those guys. As for Gavrikov this year, he is leading the team with a plus 11, and Mikey Anderson is a plus 9 on the season. Those guys have obviously, if you don't know what plus minus means, that means that they've been on the ice. Vladislav Gavrikov has been on the ice for 11 more goals scored than against while he's been on the ice, and Mikey Anderson 9. So that's obviously some good numbers. We'd like to see that continue against Colorado. And also been mentioning lately Trevor Moore and Quinton Byfield. Obviously, Trevor Moore getting a nice opportunity on the top line. He did start the season slow, but he's certainly currently riding a career-high 6-game point streak. He has goals in back-to-back games after having just one in the first 15 games. Going back to Denver, where he played his college hockey, so that's probably a fun time. I'm sure he'll have some friends in the stands for tonight's game. And we've talked about how important the Kings' penalty kill is tonight. Trevor Moore also very dangerous on that PK, had a shorthanded goal in the last game against Calgary, or actually was the game before that against Columbus, but he's always a threat to score shorthanded, so the Avalanche will have to keep that in mind as well. And Quinton Byfield, 4 points, 2 goals, 2 assists in his last 4 games. Didn't have a great game in the last outing in Calgary, but he has been looking better of late. Last game in Denver for Quinton Byfield, he had 2 goals, including the game winner. So hopefully he likes to play in that building, and we'll see another big game from Q tonight. And Anze Kopitar, your top players need to be your top players in the big game. So no bigger player, obviously, than the Kings' leading scorer in Anze Kopitar, who hopefully can get on the board with a point or two. Now he's got 61 career points against the Avalanche, 18 goals and 43 assists. That is the most of any active skater in the NHL. Kopitar is set to play in his 1,391st game tonight, which would tie him with Doug Moens for 45th in NHL history. Doug Moens was before my time. Don't know him. Same goes for Norm Ullman. Right now, Kopitar is tied with Norm with 44. I should say he's tied for 44th in career points in NHL history, 1,229. If Kopi can get at least 1 point tonight, he will break that tie with Norm Ullman, who, again, a little bit before my time. We've got some Kings news and notes to pass along as we close out the show. That's next here on Locked On LA Kings, your team every day. Hey, get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets when you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of a game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. The Chargers are hosting the Bengals on Sunday Night Football. I'll be at that game. LA is giving a 1.5 as a slight favorite. The over-under is 46.5. And the Rams will be playing on the East Coast against the Patriots on Sunday, with the Rams a 4.5 point favorite. The over-under is 43.5. Just visit FanDuel.com and join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Did want to give you a little bit of an injury update of sorts. As I mentioned, Alex Turcotte earlier. Hopefully when he gets back in, it maybe can help settle things a bit as far as who plays on the top line. But still no word on when he could return to the lineup. Last mention, he was skating on his own and is on injured reserve, but is pretty much day to day. The Kings, though, being careful with it, although they did say it was not a head injury. Arthur Kaliev also skating on his own, but apparently still not close to returning from his broken collarbone. And Kings defenseman Drew Doughty is still weeks away from a possible return after surgery for a fractured ankle. And as far as last report, he is not on the ice as of yet. Meanwhile, Kings forward Tanner Jeannot will serve the third and final game of his 3-game suspension tonight and will be eligible to return Saturday when the Kings return home to take on the Detroit Red Wings. So I mentioned checking the stats. The Kings are 9-5-3 going into tonight's game. First in the Pacific Division, third in the West, and sixth in the NHL, 21 points in 17 games. And that's good. However, it should be pointed out that as far as winning percentage, the Kings would be third in the Pacific Division behind the Golden Knights and Canucks. They would be sixth in the Western Conference and 13th in the NHL. LA getting helped out a bit by their 3 overtime losses. That's second most in the NHL. And they also had a shootout loss as well. So if the Kings want to hold on to first place for another day, they will need a win tonight, or they'll need the Golden Knights to lose in Anaheim against the Ducks, which seems unlikely. So again, if the Kings want to stay on top in the Pacific Division, they definitely will need a victory tonight. Kings Avalanche will get underway at 7 p.m. LA time. It will not be broadcast on television locally. It will be broadcast nationally on TNT, and you can listen to the game on the 710 ESPN app. By the way, if you are watching the games locally on the FanDuel Sports Network, there is some news out that I will pass along in a future episode when we have some time. They're going to start doing having a service where you can actually pay by game or groups of games rather than actually have to subscribe to a certain package. So that could be something that will help you out. If you're like me and kind of the only reason why you have the FanDuel Sports Network is to watch the Kings, maybe this can save you a little bit of money because you're not watching anything else. So we'll pass along those details. And if you want to Google it, you could check it out. But not time to really get into it on today's show. There was one minor note, literally, to pass along before we wrap things up. The Kings have reassigned forward Caleb Lawrence from the ECHL's Greenville Swamp Rabbits to the AHL's Ontario Reign. He's a former 7th-round pick by the Kings in 2022. He had 3 assists in 3 games playing with the Swamp Rabbits in his first taste of professional hockey after a junior career. Lawrence, another big body in the Kings system. We've seen 6'6" Samuel Helenius and 6'5" Andre Lee getting time with the Kings this year, while the 21-year-old Caleb Lawrence stands at 6'7". And who knows, maybe a little room to grow as well. But a big body, a name to keep an eye on. If you went to training camp this year or the rookie camp, you probably saw Caleb Lawrence skating around, looking pretty good. Still a lot to learn, kind of growing into that big body, but getting a little bit of a promotion going from the ECHL to the AHL and joining the Ontario Reign, Caleb Lawrence. All right, for you everydayers, those of you that listen and watch Locked On LA Kings every day, coming up on Friday, obviously we'll have a recap of the Kings game. Actually, coming up on Thursday, we'll have a recap of the Kings Avalanche game. I don't want to get ahead of myself. And then on Friday, we'll have our weekly Kings fan feedback show. Anything on your mind you want to talk about, ask questions, make comments regarding the LA Kings, we have a Friday fan feedback show every Friday. You can send an email address question if you would like at lockedoneddie@gmail.com, EDDIE. And if you're watching on YouTube, you are more than welcome to leave your comments in the comments section. We appreciate that. And we would love for you to stay interact with the show on social media, X, Twitter, Instagram. We are at Locked On LA Kings. I'm Eddie Garcia. Thank you as always for listening and watching this episode of Locked On LA Kings, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Have a great rest of your day. We'll talk to you tomorrow. And as always, go Kings, go.